Well, here we are. What a fine day today is. Looks like it's Thursday. And it is the 25th of July. Well, I'm on here today. There is a video out there about Otter Creek and the police being there arresting somebody. There's been several videos put up. Okay, let's put it that way. And shout out to Thomas Collins out there. I happened to see his out there, and he put on there about wanting to know if anybody had any opinions and what their thoughts were on it. And what you see is two officers arresting a subject that was out of control. And from what I've seen from different people in there, they think, well, maybe he was high on drugs or mental issues, or I didn't see any real conclusions or the police report itself. Just a lot of speculation by people, and even though there's at least the father of the individual, the brother of the individual, and Thomas and another individual that were actually witnesses to when it went on. Thomas happened to get a video of it. I don't know if he did it with his phone or camera, whatever he had, but you know, when I look at it, and of course it looks like they beat on him a little bit, and they didn't beat the crap out of him like some of them said, but he took some kneeing and some slamming into the hood. But when I look at it, and this is strictly my opinion, so please don't beat up on me. When I look at it, and when they say there's two sides to every story, there really is. Now, when a police officer is doing his duty, one of the first things he's trying to do is to protect himself. And their training really will push on that end of it. There's no sense of going out and answering a call and then let a subject beat you so bad you can't perform your job, or maybe take your life. So when they meet with somebody that obviously has issues like that, they're extra caution. And what happens when there's extra caution? Adrenaline starts flowing. You're going to do whatever you have to protect yourself. Now these guys, obviously they've got weapons on them. I don't know if they had tasers and pepper spray and stuff like that on them as well. They encountered him, took him down, put handcuffs on him, and to that point everything seemed normal, not a big deal. On the way back to putting him in the car, of course it did a few things. It looked like they had took him down kind of with extra force, and I don't know what extra force would be. I'm not walking in their shoes, and neither are you. And then when they get him back up and they start walking towards the vehicle, it looks like he pulled his feet up on his own accord, which causes the officers to lurch forward, which brings on another tug on the arms, get him back up. And they take him over to the car and slam his head into the hood forcefully, and then he gets kneed from behind, it looks like. And I'm only going by the video, all right? I don't know what the audio was going on, and I didn't have a hold of this guy. So my opinion would be probably different than the guy that's got a hold of him. But I want you to think about this. If you were that officer, you're not going to wait till somebody swings around and clobbers you in some way. If you feel a muscle move, you're going to react to the muscle action of that person to stop the next action, okay? That is how you're trained. You're trained to react to tightening of a muscle or the movement of a body. And usually that training will pay off. It'll save that officer from a lot of bruises. And it also might save the prisoner's life, because if that prisoner gets carried away, the officer's going to pull his gun and shoot him. Now, I realize he had his handcuffs on, but I want to tell you something right now. Handcuffs, that's only partial control. Controls the arms only. The man can still stomp your feet. He can spit on you. He can bite you. He can grab. He can still grab a gun and shoot you, by the way. I don't know if you realize it or not, but put your hands behind your back with a gun or with a weapon. Let's go that route. And see if you can't point around forwards, or if you can't switch around backwards and pull the trigger. You can. Now, stomping on another officer's feet, it's a good way to get away, and prisoners, believe me, know all the tricks if they've been through it before. Now, they picked this guy up before. This is not the first rodeo for this person. And my understanding is he's been out of prison too long as it is, or out of jail, or whatever it was he was at. Now, apparently, he's a bad egg as it is. Now, I understand when you're looking at that video, the first thing you're going to do is jump all over the police officers. So were they defending themselves against an action they think might be going to happen? More than likely, that's what they were doing. Now, they could have been mad at him. I mean, after all, he'd spit in one of them's face. How would you feel? And you're going to say, well, that's no reason to beat up on him. What happens if somebody spits in your face? I'm just asking you. Just because he's got a uniform on, that makes it okay for somebody to spit on him? Is that, I mean, if that's what you're trying to say, man, don't call the cop out there. Please don't do it. Because you're asking him to do something that's way above his pay grade. Yeah, don't do that. Now, what I've heard from a lot of the people, some of the same people that made these complaints about the brutality, they couldn't get enough response out of police. Boy, when I looked at that, and I'm hearing, okay, these guys won't respond to people out in Otter Creek. And then when they do respond, they get nailed for being too harsh. First, it's not doing enough, and then they're too harsh. You can't have your cake and eat it too, gentlemen or ladies. And when I looked through the responses underneath Thomas's thing, boy, everybody was mad at these two officers. And they ad-lib a little bit. They tell a story that isn't necessarily there. Now, if you're that, like I say, if you're that officer, you can feel an action coming when you have a hold of a prisoner. And they have to stop the next action. And the only way they can do that is usually through their knees. At least they didn't take him to the ground and beat him to a pulp. And when the officer goes that extra step, in other words, the prisoner is down now, he's got handcuffs, he can't move obviously, and they keep on beating him. That is taking it too far. What I seen is this guy is still on his feet. They subdued him by showing him what was going to happen if he kept on doing the things he was doing, and I'm assuming what happened is he probably tightened up some of the muscles that the guy could feel it, and they knew something was coming, and so they stopped it. They preventing the next action is what they're doing, and they're trained to do that. So when these guys go before the board or whatever, and you're out there, you're trying them in public court, which is extremely unfair. People from the internal investigations can do a good job on it. And I'm not saying they're going to do it one way or the other. They're trained to do it because they're peers and they know what they went through, what they're going through, and what the correct action is supposed to be. So before you hang these guys out to dry, wait for the report if you would. And I know the big response for me today is going to be some pretty hateful things. And I'm sorry you feel that way. But our police are our only thing between us and the criminal element. And if you ever want to see what it's like when you don't have the scrutiny of somebody in a uniform, please do me a favor. Get on your computer and type in California slabs. And you're going to see what they call the last free place in America, in the United States. And the California slabs are out in the desert, out in California. It's an old military base from World War II. And there's people that live out there because they can't live with society. They don't live anywhere else. There's no running water and no power. And there's no government. And if you study enough and look around enough, you're going to see what happens to people when there's a lack of some kind of a societal supervision so that the majority of people can live in peace. And that's what I'm looking at there. Now, if in Otter Creek, if you want to go and if you want to end up with a situation like they have out there in those California slabs. By the way, the reason it's called the slabs is when the military base dismantled, all that was left was the concrete slabs. That's it. So do me a favor, look at that before you decide you don't want any more police. Just do it, please. The other thing is I want you to look at it somewhat similar to what I did. I'm looking at it from that officer's eyes and the reaction that I personally probably would have had should I have had my hands on this guy. And if he acted like he was going to move or if he was going to stomp his feet, believe me, I would have done something before he had a chance to commit the act. You have to act on the safety side for the officer at that point until they can get him locked up into a cell. If you commit a crime, and this guy did, he committed assault, expect some rough treatment from those that are come and get you. Now, if the guy would have been submissive, he wouldn't have had anywhere near the problem. He probably would have got thrown in the back of the vehicle they had over there. He'd have been handcuffed. They would have stripped everything out of his pockets and then took him to jail. As it is, I know you guys think that was extraordinarily brutal. I've seen a lot worse and a lot quicker reaction from an officer than what you've seen there that day. And I know you say, well, they didn't show any restraint at all. And in actuality, they did. They could have tased him. They could have done a lot of things that would have been worse than what they did do. When they take somebody like that to the ground and then they beat the crap out of them and knock them cold and break their jawbone and break their arm and stuff like that, that's brutality. And I would say that that's outright brutality at that point. But what I seen in the film, it leaves the door open to interpretation, and you need to look at the report and then put yourself in that man's shoes in the blue uniform, saying, would I let this guy stomp on my foot, spit in my face, bite me, or grab one of my weapons? Would I let him do that? Or would you try to prevent it before he got a chance to do it? Now, he already spit in their face once. Okay. I hope I got my point across to you. Now, it hasn't been that long ago. You say, well, we can't get along here. Look at these people out here. They do all kinds of stuff. It's against the law. And when the cop comes out and makes his report, you say, oh, that report's wrong. It's not right. And then you expect him to come out and be on your side. It's tough when you blatantly jump on their backs over a report and you don't know their side because they haven't been interviewed. You know, I put out a thing out there and said it's too bad that somebody hasn't went over there and interviewed them. One of the stations, interview the sheriff's department, interview the police department. Get their view of things, how it's going on out there. I don't know if they'll actually tell you their real feelings because they have to work with all of you guys on a daily basis. You know, they work there at your command. in real terms. I know people just, they're going to rip me a new butt for coming on here giving my opinion. And I'm being neutral, believe it or not. This is a neutral observation telling you how I feel, what I think they were going through. Remember, it's just what I'm thinking, what they would be going through at that point. You have somebody that's out of control that you've got to keep in control to keep him from doing damage to you. They already have a hold of him to keep him from damaging citizens. They were called out by citizens of Otter Creek to protect them. And they did that. You know, a criminal is just a criminal. And I realize they have rights to a life. But let's give our officers a break as well. Let them give us their story so we can see what their analysis was compared to what we see on the tape. A tape can be very slanted. It doesn't tell the whole story. You know, you guys one time said, well, Ray, you're a little bit like Paul Harvey. You get there and at the end you tell the whole story. And that's what I try to do. But boy, when I do tell it, people get so upset with me sometimes because it may not align with theirs. And no matter how whether I would be against an officer or for him, there would be people that would want to chop me to pieces. So there is no way I can get on here and not draw somebody in that gets upset. I hope you understand. Please, please, think about this before you get, don't hang these guys out to dry so easily. You're going to need their cooperation someday. And from what I've seen, if there's more people like that out there, you're going to need a lot of help, not just these two. And if you handcuff the police officer, he won't be able to do anything more. And if you spread enough hate into that department from your little town out there, don't expect a whole lot of help. I mean, it's just natural for people to say, I don't want no part of that. That's your baby. It's already down to just nothing but supervisors that are going to come out to calls from two parties out there, okay? There's two parties out there. The only thing that they can get out there for them too are supervisors when they're available. I want you to think about that. Because of the complaints, that whole department is penalized. They cannot respond to calls that are called in by those not individuals, but two parties. They're neighbors. Would you want to go with that much lack of protection? Because, I mean, you're down to just only supervisors. What if there's only one supervisor on duty when the call goes in? You can't get just any deputy sheriff out there. Doesn't work. So think before you go too far, please. For those that you understand, and I appreciate all of the subs that I've got out there. You put up with a lot from other people, and sometimes you bite your tongue when I'm talking too, I'm sure, because you just can't please everybody out there. You can't do that. And sometimes when I'm laughing or smiling, you think that I think it's a big joke. It's really not. I've told you over and over, I don't want to cry. I'll be a grown man and cry on here. And that can happen. Your emotions have to come out to a certain extent, no matter how you try to do it. It's pretty hard to sugarcoat a dog turd. I know you've heard that before. It's still what it is. Still going to stink, and I don't know what it tastes like, but I'm sure don't want to try it. And I don't care what you do to it. Oh my. If people have such descriptions of things that go on, I'm amazed at how many you come up with. You know, my grandmother one time told me, said, you know, 4-letter words might be considered a swear word, but there's a lot of words that it's the way you say it that make it a swear word. And she wouldn't repeat them, but she said it's the attitude you utilize while you're speaking and how you emphasize it can make it into a swear word. What's up here in your mind at the time. And the good Lord knows the difference. And so you have to almost think about it when you start talking to somebody or getting upset with them. The Lord is there listening, right? And hopefully, on these instances where somebody is engaged in this kind of action in your town, out there in Otter Creek, I hope the Lord is kind of babysitting some that deserve it, or tries to change those that don't. Keeps the peace rather than letting it turn into a war. You know, the whole world is kind of more or less at a war some way. Right now, we've got a few months until we have this election coming up, and no matter which party you pick, the other half is extremely upset with you. It just isn't fair to, you have these politicians from both sides that wear it out, reasons to hate each other and other people and each party and all that. There's no reason for that. We can go out there and find reason for either one to be in office, depending on which part we take. I don't know why we can't get a negotiation going where we can all come out of there happy. There has to be reasonable thought process to come to a conclusion. Now, I see it every day on the news, you know, about these proposed fights, people that are mad at each other for things. Goodness, you don't have to search for a reason. There's just so many out there. But think about it, if you could find a way where you could be friends with somebody that you weren't. You know, a long time ago, I learned how to be a friend of somebody at the time I thought was my worst enemy. And I had good reason to be mad at him. But when we finally got our emotions under control and become friends, we were friends, family-wise, our children, our wives, until the day they passed away. And I feel bad that they're gone. They were good friends my whole life. You know, I've lost a lot of those people. And there were people when I was young that I didn't particularly care for, but when I got older, I understood a little bit of tolerance towards that end. And you realize sometimes your emotions carry you into a place where you shouldn't be. And if I could stop part of that just by coming on here and talking a little bit, I've accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish. Now, you guys know I just do this for a hobby. I don't have any skin in this game. The good Lord, I think He's coming pretty soon. I think Christ's second coming is imminent. And that's my belief. And I'm sure there's other people out there who have a belief that may be different, but hopefully we all believe in the same God. I hope so. Well, that's all I've got for today. Don't roast me too bad. It's been a little warm, and we got a lot of warm weather coming up. I'm going to be roasted on my own without your help. You have a good day out there, and please think this through before you make a real determination, and don't get too hateful. You're going to find out someday you're going to kick somebody out that you really needed their help down the line. That won't go well. With that thought, have a great day out there, and thank you for listening. Thanks for all you great subs that keep that have that tolerance where you come back time after time after time. Goodbye.